Welcome to the Deep Dive. So today we're stepping away a bit from, the really abstract stuff, and we're driving straight into something really practical. It's the language that basically structures our modern work life.
The daily routine.
Exactly, the daily routine.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because a lot of learners, they focus heavily on their specific industry jargon, engineering terms, medical terms.
Or the specialized stuff.
Exactly. But maybe the most crucial language, the real utility, is just being able to talk confidently about the everyday things, the repeatable stuff.
Like getting to work, your schedule?
Precisely. Your movements, your schedule. It's really the bedrock of day-to-day communication. If you can't explain your basic routine, things get tricky fast.
Absolutely. And the source materials you've shared, they're really focused on giving learners those exact tools, aren't they?
They are. The vocabulary, the prepositions, those little connecting words, the common sequences of verbs people use to describe a typical workday.
Getting to work, what you do when you get there, when you leave.
All of it. How you travel, the times things happen.
But for us, here in this deep dive, it's not just about learning the language itself, is it?
No, not at all. We're using these structured examples, these sort of language templates.
As a key.
Kind of, as a key to decode something bigger. The underlying architecture of the modern global workday itself. What does this language tell us about how work is structured around the world?
Right. Because if you look closely at the data, the examples they provide, they seem simple on the surface.
Very simple. Basic grammar rules, lists of words, straightforward stuff.
But when we dig into it, like we're going to do now, we can see more. We can understand not just, say, the words for commuting.
Like traffic jam or rush hour.
Yeah, but what the choice of those words, or even the way people describe their transport, what that actually reveals about, everything.
The logistical reality for millions, billions of people. Population density, the state of public transport, cultural expectations about time. It's all embedded in there.
So our mission today is pretty clear then. We're doing a structured analysis, a real breakdown of these core language tools.
The ones you need to narrate your professional life.
Exactly. But we're also hunting for those surprising insights, the things hidden beneath the surface of these, seemingly mundane sentences about catching the bus.
There's definitely more there than meets the eye.
Okay, so here's the plan. We've got roughly 4 main areas we want to cover. First, we're mapping the journey, really analyzing the specific words people use for travel, traffic, delays, all that friction in getting from A to B.
The vocabulary of movement and impedance.
Nice way to put it. Second, we're moving to the clock. We're going to seriously deconstruct those 3 tiny but absolutely vital prepositions of time.
The big 3. At, on, and in.
Yeah, they cause so much confusion, but they're the pillars holding up any schedule description.
Absolutely crucial.
Third, we'll put it all together. We'll look at how you actually construct the narrative of a typical workday using common routine verbs. Start work, check emails, finish work.
Building the sequence.
Exactly. And finally, the part I find really fascinating, we'll examine the global rhythms. The source gives examples from Japan, India, the USA.
Right. And what do those little variations tell us about work life, universally and locally?
It connects the language directly to cultural practices. Okay, that's the map. Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. So section 1, mapping the journey, that daily trip, home to work, work to home.
The commute. It's the necessary preamble, isn't it? Before the real work can even start.
Totally. And you said earlier, the language we use here isn't just describing it.
No, it's definitional. It sets the stage. It defines a huge logistical reality for, pretty much the entire working population. It dictates how much time, how much energy, how many resources people have left for everything else in their lives.
That's a big claim for just talking about getting to work.
But think about it. The length and stress of your commute directly impacts your well-being, your finances, your available time. The language reflects that constraint.
Okay, fair point. And the cornerstone word the documents highlight right away is commute itself.
Yes. And what's neat about commute is its flexibility.
How so?
Well, it works perfectly as a noun, right? You can say, my commute is awful today, describes the journey itself. But it's also a verb, I commute for an hour each way, describes the action of making that journey.
Right. It's efficient language.
Yeah.
And it implies something regular, doesn't it? Not just a one-off trip.
Exactly. It speaks of routine, regularity, maybe even obligation. It's not like saying, I traveled to the office today. Commute implies it's the standard thing, the expected journey between 2 fixed points. home, and work.
It anchors the geography of the work week.
Perfectly put. And once that journey is established, the next essential piece of language is how you make it. The method.
Ah, okay. This is where we get into the by versus on thing.
Precisely. And this is the first really strong grammatical pattern we see in the language data provided.
The consistency of by.
Yes. Look at the examples. By bus, by train, by car, by subway, by tram, by bike even.
It's always by when you're talking about a vehicle, essentially.
Generally, yes. Especially a vehicle that operates as part of a system or a machine you control. This pattern, this consistency, it tells the listener something important.
What's that?
That when you're describing the means of transport, especially these common, almost impersonal methods, by is the structural word. It puts the focus on the method or the system being used rather than you, the individual, performing the action.
So saying I go by bus emphasizes the bus system itself.
In a way, yes. It externalizes the agency slightly to the vehicle or the transport network. Using by signals that this method is an established system could be public, like a train, or private, like your own car, but it's the means that's being highlighted. It defines the logistical choice.
Okay, that makes sense. System focus.
Then
comes the exception, the one that kind of breaks the rule and, as you say, maybe reveals the underlying logic.
Exactly. Why on foot?
Yeah, why isn't it by foot? If it's by bike, why not by foot?
Good question. The documents are clear. You never say by foot. The shift to on foot is fascinating linguistically.
So what's the logic?
Well, think about it. When you go by car or by train, you're using an external machine, an external system. When you go on foot, what's the engine?
Me. My own legs.
Exactly. You are the engine. The method is entirely personal, internal, kinetic. The shift to on, literally placing your feet on the ground, breaks that pattern of external systems and emphasizes the individual as the sole agent of movement.
Wow. Okay, so the language itself draws a line.
A very clear line. System usage gets by, personal, physical propulsion gets on.
System versus self. That's actually quite elegant when you put it like that.
Isn't it? Language often has this hidden logic.
Okay, so we know the word commute. We know how to describe the method by for systems, on for self-propulsion. But let's be real. The commute often involves problems.
Yes. Friction, impedance, delays.
Right. That smooth journey by train doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
So the vocabulary needs words for when the system breaks down and gets overloaded.
Absolutely. And the source documents give us two really crucial interconnected terms here.
Which are?
Rush hour and traffic jam.
Okay. And you said interconnected. How?
Well, it's vital to see the difference. One defines a time and the other describes a physical state that often happens during that time.
Gotcha. So rush hour is the time period.
Exactly. It's usually that concentrated window, maybe a couple of hours in the morning, maybe a couple in the evening.
When seemingly everyone is trying to get to work or get home at the same time.
Precisely. It's driven by shared social and economic schedules, standard office hours, school times, everyone moving at once.
But the name itself, rush hour, is kind of funny when you think about it.
It's deeply ironic, isn't it? That's a subtle cultural note baked right into the language.
How so?
The word rush implies speed, urgency, getting somewhere quickly.
Yeah, like I'm in a rush.
Exactly. But what is rush hour universally known for?
The complete opposite of speed. Crawling traffic, packed trains, total inefficiency.
Right. So the name itself is this linguistic marker of collective frustration. It describes the very period when society tries to speed up, but the infrastructure buckles under the pressure and forces everyone to slow down. It's kind of darkly humorous.
A collective bottleneck time.
A perfect description. And the direct physical consequence of that bottleneck, especially for road travel.
The traffic jam.
That's it. That's the specific problem. The blockage. Cars are stuck. Maybe barely moving, sometimes completely stopped. Why? Because the volume of vehicles attempting to move during rush hour exceeds the road's capacity.
So one is the time, the other is the result.
Exactly. And the source materials lay it out perfectly logically in their example sentence, something like, during rush hour, it takes longer because of traffic jams.
The cause and effect are right there in the sentence structure. Rush hour, the time context, leads to traffic jams, the physical problem, which leads to delay. It takes longer.
It's a causal chain. Rush hour creates the high density. The traffic jam is the physical manifestation of that density hitting a choke point.
And often, when people are complaining about rush hour and traffic jams, they start talking about alternatives.
Which brings us to the term public transport.
Right. That's the big umbrella term, isn't it?
Yes. It covers all the shared systems, buses, trains, subways, trams, sometimes ferries. Anything run as a public service, essentially.
And it's often presented as the solution, or at least an alternative, to the private car traffic jam problem.
Very often. Discussing the misery of rush hour driving naturally leads to considering public transport. It reinforces the idea that these systems, ideally, operate somewhat outside the chaos of individual cars clogging the roads.
Even though, let's be honest, public transport can get incredibly crowded during rush hour too.
Oh, absolutely. It has its own form of congestion, definitely. But the type of problem is often different crowding rather than gridlock, usually.
So let's look at that core example sentence again, pulling all these pieces together. I commute to work by bus every morning. During rush hour, it takes longer because of traffic jams.
See how it all fits? Commute establishes the regular journey. By bus defines the method the system used.
Right.
Every morning adds the frequency. During rush hour, names the specific, difficult time period.
The context for the problem.
Exactly. And traffic jams gives the explicit reason for the delay mentioned. It takes longer.
It's actually a really concise little narrative. Movement, method, time, problem, consequence. All in 2 sentences.
It is. And it shows that mastering this routine language isn't just memorizing words. It's learning how to build these logical mini-stories about your daily logistics.
Okay, that's a really solid breakdown of the commuting language. We know how we get there, the words for the journey, and its problems.
So logically, the next step is when.
Exactly. Once we arrive, or even before we leave, we need to place ourselves and our actions in time. We stop moving geographically, and we start locating ourselves chronologically.
Which brings us squarely into the territory of those 3 crucial prepositions: at, on, and in.
Ah, yes. The tiny words that define our schedules. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
They seem so small, don't they? At, on, in, 3 little words.
Deceptively simple. But, as anyone learning English knows, they can be incredibly tricky. Why is that? Why do they cause so much confusion?
Well, I think it's because they're not just interchangeable synonyms for when. They create a very specific hierarchy, a hierarchy of time specificity.
Okay, explain that. Hierarchy of specificity.
Yeah. They function like organizational pillars for our daily schedule. They clarify precisely how general or specific we're being about the timing of an action. Get them wrong, and your schedule becomes ambiguous.
So they're structurally vital for clarity.
Absolutely vital. Think about a simple action like I check emails. It's vague, right? When?
Could be any time.
But if I say I check emails at 9 a.m. on Monday, suddenly it's locked into the schedule. The prepositions provide the temporal coordinates.
Okay, so let's break them down one by one, starting with the most specific. That would be at, right?
Yes. The rule for at is all about precision, pinpoint accuracy on the timeline.
Like hitting a specific dot on the clock face?
Exactly. It's the most restrictive, the narrowest time frame. So the obvious examples are clock times. At 8 o'clock, at 10:30 a.m., at 5:15 p.m. Specific, measurable moments.
Makes sense. Clock time at.
But it's not only clock times. What's interesting is how at out also applies to certain phrases that aren't numbers on a clock, but are culturally understood as precise moments or points in the daily cycle.
Like what?
Well, the examples given are at noon.
Yeah, which is precisely 12:400 p.m.
Okay, at midnight.
12:40 a.m. sharp. Got it.
And also at sunrise, at sunset. These are specific transitional moments.
Okay, those feel precise too. But then the source also lists at night. That one feels different. Night isn't a single moment. It's hours long. Why at night, not in the night?
Ah, that's a fantastic question. It's a bit of a linguistic fossil, perhaps. At night is used because traditionally and culturally, night is treated as a single distinct block within the 24-hour cycle. It's contrasted with day.
So even though it spans several hours, we conceptually treat it as a specific time slot.
Kind of, yes. You're locating an action within that defined period of darkness and rest. It functions like a fixed marker in the daily routine. I work during the day, I sleep at night. The use of at emphasizes that boundary, that specific phase of the cycle, rather than just a general duration like in the morning.
Huh. Okay, that's subtle, but it makes a kind of cultural sense. It's a designated time block.
Exactly. It's treated as a point in the cycle.
All right, so at is for precise points. Clock times, noon, midnight, and the conceptual block of night. Let's move up the scale then. What about on?
If @ is the pinprick on the timeline, on is like highlighting a specific square on the calendar page.
A whole day or a date.
Precisely. Its main job is to specify particular days of the week or specific dates.
So examples like on Monday, on Tuesday, on Friday.
Yes. Or specific calendar dates on July 4th, on December 25th.
Or even name days that aren't dates, like on my birthday, on New Year's Day.
Exactly. You're mentally selecting one specific named 24-hour block from the calendar. It's broader than @ it's a whole day, not a moment, but much more specific than in.
You wouldn't say at Monday because a day is too long.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say in Monday because it's too specific a unit, usually.
Right. On hat hits that sweet spot for days and dates.
Now, this brings us to that interesting little note in the source material about regional differences.
Yes. On the weekend.
It specifically says U.S. English. What's the deal there?
This is a fantastic example of how grammar isn't just abstract rules. It reflects how cultures perceive and categorize time.
Okay.
In American English, it's very common, standard in fact, to say on the weekend. Why? Because the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, is conceptually treated as a single, cohesive, specific block of time on the calendar, like a named holiday. Hence on.
Like it's one event block.
Pretty much. But in many other parts of the English-speaking world, particularly the UK and places influenced by British English,
You hear something different.
you'll often hear at the weekend.
At the weekend. Like it's a specific point.
Sort of. It treats the weekend more like a boundary marker, the point where the work week ends and the free time begins. Or sometimes as a general point in the week cycle, similar to at night. It's a fascinating little divergence.
Wow. So the choice between on and at for the weekend actually signals where the speaker might be from.
It can be a strong indicator, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And for a learner, knowing this difference is key to sounding natural in either context.
Yeah.
It shows that grammar isn't just universal logic, it's also cultural convention.
That's a great insight. Perception shapes grammar. Okay, so we have at for points, on for days, dates. That leaves the widest category. If at is the pinprick and on is the calendar square, what's in?
In is the container, the big bucket. It's used for longer, less specific periods of time where you're talking about being inside a duration rather than at a point or on a specific day.
Okay, like what kind of periods?
Months. In January. In August. Years. In 2024. In the 1990s. In summer. In winter.
Longer spans of time. Makes sense.
Also, general parts of the day that aren't specific clock times but cover several hours. This is crucial.
Like in the morning.
Exactly. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. These are broad stretches. They don't have the fixed start 10 points needed for at, and they're not specific calendar days like you need for on.
So if I say I have a meeting in the morning, it means sometime between, say, 9 a.m. and noon.
Precisely. It gives a general time frame, the container. But if you said, I have a meeting at 10 a.m., now it's specific.
You're pinpointing it within the container.
You got it. The language provides this brilliant nesting capability. You can be in the year, on a specific date within that year, and at a precise moment on that date.
Let's look at the source's example sentence again to see how they weave together. It was, I start work at 9 a.m. on Monday. I usually take a break in the afternoon.
Perfect example of the hierarchy in action. See how it moves.
Yeah. It goes from super specific to less specific.
Exactly. The action of starting work needs precision. It happens at 9 a.m., the exact moment.
Right.
That precise moment occurs on Monday, this specific calendar day.
Got it.
But then the action of taking a break is less defined. It happens sometime in the afternoon, the broad, multi-hour container.
At on in, precise point, specific day, general period.
That structure defines the rhythm. It shows which parts of the schedule are fixed points at 9 start and which have more flexibility in the afternoon break. It communicates the rigidity or lack thereof in your professional life.
So if you can master this at, on, in distinction.
You can basically define your entire schedule. You can communicate your availability, your routine, your deadlines with clarity and without ambiguity. That's the power hidden in these 3 little words.
It forces you to think, am I talking about the clock time at, the calendar day on, or just the general time frame in?
Precisely. The choice of prepositions signals the level of specificity you intend. Get it right, and everyone knows exactly when you mean.
Fantastic. Okay, that nails down the when. We've mapped the journey how and pinpointed the time when. Now we need the what's.
The actions themselves. What do people actually do during the workday?
Right. Section 3. Constructing the narrative of the routine using those core action verbs.
This is where we build the actual story of the day. Because the professional workday, for most people, is inherently structured. It's repetitive, predictable.
A daily script?
It really is. So the language used to describe it also needs to be structured, sequential. You need a reliable set of verbs, a kind of inventory of common actions that define the typical workflow.
And the source provides a really solid list. Let's go through them. We've got start work, finish work.
The bookends. Essential. Define the core time commitment.
Then check emails.
Input management. Standard administrative task.
Attend meetings.
Collaboration. Moving from individual work to group work.
Take a break. Have lunch.
Necessary human maintenance. You can't skip describing these if you want to sound like a real person, not a robot.
Good point. Make phone calls.
Output communication. Another key administrative or operational function.
And finally, leave the office.
The physical departure, often linked back to the commute.
It's a pretty comprehensive list for a standard office day, isn't it?
It covers the main beats really well. Start and finish, frame the day, check emails and make phone calls, handle the information flow, attend meetings, covers the collaborative aspect, and take a break, have lunch, ensures the human element isn't lost. The final one, work on projects, which often comes up, covers the actual core tasks.
And you can see how the choice of which verbs someone uses most often tells you something about their job, right?
Absolutely. If someone says, I spend most of my day attending meetings, you picture a manager maybe, or someone in a very team-based role.
Versus somebody who says, I mostly work on projects and check emails.
That sounds more like an individual contributor, maybe a programmer, a writer, someone focused on solitary tasks. The verbs paint a picture of the work environment itself.
Okay, so let's integrate everything now. The commute words, the prepositions, and these verbs. Let's walk through that example routine provided in the source material step by step. It's like a template.
All right. It starts by setting the anchor point. I usually start work at 9 a.m.
Okay, verb start, precise time with at. Establishes the boundary.
Then the first block of tasks. I check emails in the morning.
Verb check emails, general time container within, gives a window for the task.
But then a scheduled interruption. At 11, I often attend a short meeting.
Back to precision. Verb attend meeting, specific time with at, because meetings are usually fixed points in the schedule, unlike casually checking email.
Exactly. The grammar reflects the nature of the activity. Meetings demand temporal precision.
Midday arrives. I have lunch at 1 p.m.
Again, verb have lunch, and usually lunch is at a reasonable fixed time, so at 1 p.m. marks that main break.
Makes sense. What about the afternoon?
The example says, and in the afternoon I work on projects.
Okay, verb work on projects and back to the broad container in the afternoon. This feels right, as project work can be more fluid, less tied to an exact clock time.
Precisely. It allows for that block of focus, perhaps less interrupted work time.
And finally, the day wraps up. I finish at 6 p.m. and go home by train. And boom, that last sentence ties it all together beautifully.
How so?
You get the final boundary verb, finish. You get the precise time at 6 p.m. and then it immediately links back to the logistics of section 1, the commute home, specified with the method by train. Start to finish. Commute in, work sequence with times, commute out. It's a complete narrative loop.
It really is a perfectly structured, concise description of a standard professional day.
What's really powerful, though, is seeing how this structured language isn't just for describing your own day. It immediately becomes functional in conversation, right?
Oh.
The source included that little dialogue snippet.
Yes, the speaker A, speaker B exchange, that's crucial because it moves from simple description into actual interaction, comparing schedules, justifying choices.
Let's break that down. Speaker A asks the basic question. What time do you usually start work? Using the key verb.
Speaker B answers with their specific time. I start at 8:30, then immediately turns it back. How about you?
Speaker A gives their time. I start at 9. So right away, they've used start and aledo to establish a clear difference in their routines. They're defining their personal schedules relative to each other.
They've pinpointed their differing start times on the clock. Then the conversation naturally pivots.
Yeah, it shifts from when to how. Speaker A asks, do you drive to work? Implied method, by car.
And Speaker B clarifies their different choice. No, I take the bus, explicitly stating the public transport method.
But then comes the justification, using the vocabulary we discussed earlier. It's faster during rush hour.
Exactly. That short exchange packs a punch. It uses start times at 8:30 versus at 9. It contrasts travel methods, driving car versus taking the bus, and it brings in the critical concept of rush hour and the implied problem of traffic jams to explain why they choose the bus. It's a strategic decision for speed, faster.
So Speaker B isn't just stating a fact. They're performing a small defense of their commuting strategy. They're basically saying, my choice avoids the rush hour traffic problem that driving likely entails.
Precisely. They're using this routine vocabulary as tools for logistical negotiation and explanation in a real-world context. It proves that willingness isn't just about reciting lists. It's about navigating daily constraints and choices.
Mastering this language really is mastering the logistics of modern work life.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we've built the routine. We know how to talk about the journey, the time, the actions. Now let's take that final step back.
Connecting it to the bigger picture.
Yeah. Let's look at those global examples provided. How does this language play out in different cultural contexts? Section 4, global rhythms.
This is where it gets really illuminating, I think, because the framework of the language needing verbs like start, needing prepositions like by or at that, seems pretty universal for describing a workday.
Right, everyone needs to talk about starting work and how they get there.
But the specific words you slot into that framework, the nouns, the times, that's where you see the impact of geography, infrastructure, culture.
Yeah.
It all comes shining through.
And these little case studies in the source data, they're like perfect linguistic snapshots of those different realities.
They really are. They show that the language scaffolding is constant, but the architectural details built onto it are incredibly varied.
Okay, let's look at case study 1, Japan. The document notes 2 key things. Many people take the train to work. They often start at 9 and finish around 6.
All right, what does that immediately tell us, just from the language?
We'll take the train. That phrase screams high population density. It implies a massive, efficient, widely used public transportation system. Saying you take the train suggests it's the default, the norm for millions. It's a shared communal experience baked into the daily routine.
The choice of take the train is almost a linguistic shorthand for a whole way of urban life, dense, reliant on shared infrastructure, predictable.
And the schedule. Start at 9, finish around 6.
That points to a pretty standard, maybe quite regimented, professional workday. The 9 to 6 schedule is common in many corporate cultures. The language reflects a value placed on that predictable structure and maybe a slightly longer standard day than the classic Western 9 to 5.
So density, strong public transit, structured workday. All from 2 short sentences.
See, the language carries the context.
Now let's shift gears dramatically. Case study 2, India. The source highlights 2 different points. Some offices start earlier, and commuting by motorcycle is common.
Okay, immediate contrasts jump out.
First, the time. Start earlier. Maybe 8 a.m., maybe even earlier, instead of 9. What does that suggest?
It could be cultural preference, but often it's an adaptation. Maybe to avoid the worst heat of the day, or crucially, to try and beat the peak congestion. Starting earlier is a strategy to manage environmental or infrastructural challenges.
And the second point, commuting by motorcycle. Still uses by car or by bus.
Yes, the structural preposition for a vehicle remains.
But the choice of vehicle motorcycle tells a completely different story than train.
Completely different. What does motorcycle imply about the environment?
Maneuverability is key. It suggests dense traffic, maybe roads where larger vehicles struggle. Agility is more valuable than capacity. It points towards a different kind of urban planning, different road conditions.
Exactly. Saying I commute by motorcycle paints a picture of navigating potentially chaotic, high-density traffic needing personal agility. It implies exposure to the elements, noise, pollution perhaps. It's a world away from the orderly, enclosed by-train commute.
The same preposition, by, but a vastly different infrastructural reality embedded in the noun choice.
That's the power of analyzing the content within the structure.
Okay, final case study. The USA. The source says, people usually drive to work and may start around 8 or 9.
All right. Keepers here?
Drive to work.
Yeah.
That's the by-car structure, essentially.
And what does widespread driving to work usually signal?
Lower density, geographical sprawl, definitely a reliance on personal vehicles. Road networks are assumed to be extensive. It suggests a culture built around individualized transport, unlike the communal train culture implied for Japan.
The linguistic choice reflects a different settlement pattern, a different infrastructure priority.
And the time may start around 8 or 9.
Notice the slight softening there, around 8 or 9. compared to the more definitive start at 9 in the Japan example.
Yeah, it feels a bit looser.
It could suggest more variation between industries or companies, maybe more flexibility in start times within certain limits. It perhaps reflects a culture that allows for a bit more individual scheduling within a defined window, compared to the potentially more rigid, system-driven start times you might find where everyone is coordinating around train schedules.
So train implies synchronicity. Driving allows for a bit more stagger.
That's one possible interpretation, yes. The language hints at these underlying cultural rhythms.
So why is this important for the listener, for the learner?
Because it demonstrates that the language framework, we've been dissecting the verbs, the prepositions, the commuting terms, is the essential toolkit. But understanding the context helps you choose the right words from that toolkit. Knowing that by train is common in one place and by motorcycle in another helps you understand and describe those realities accurately.
It connects the grammar directly to the real world.
Exactly. And by mastering this framework, you gain this incredible ability. You can hear someone describe their commute, I go by car, or I take the subway, and instantly get a sense of their logistical world, their urban environment, thousands of miles away. It's based on just a couple of word choices.
Language as a window onto global work culture.
Precisely.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground there. So what does this all mean? Let's try and synthesize this.
We've really taken apart the language of the daily grind, haven't we?
We have. Not just looking at the words, but using them as like analytical tools. Decoding urbanism, infrastructure, time management, all through the lens of how people talk about getting to work and what they do there.
So, recapping the journey. We navigated the core terminology of movement. We established the idea of the commute as that regular journey. We drew that crucial distinction between the time period of rush hour and the physical problem of a traffic jam.
And the difference between using by for vehicular systems and the unique for personal movement on foot.
Exactly. The system versus the self.
Then we moved to the clock. We really pinned down the logic of those prepositions.
The hierarchy of specificity. From the precise point in time with at.
Like at 8 o'clock at noon.
To the specific calendar day or date with on.
On Monday, on my birthday.
And remembering that cultural variation on the weekend in U.S. English versus potentially at the weekend elsewhere.
Right. And finally, the broad container of in for longer periods.
In the morning, in July, in 2025, moving from precise to general.
And then, most importantly, perhaps, we saw how to actually build the narrative.
Constructing that daily story using the high-utility routine verbs. Start, finish, check emails, attend meetings, take a break, have lunch, work on projects.
Showing how they combine naturally with the prepositions at, on, in to create a complete chronological account of a standard workday.
And we saw how that moves beyond description into actual dialogue, comparing schedules, justifying transport choices based on things like rush hour.
Right. To really make sure these core ideas stick, let's quickly revisit those key practice points, the kind of things that often trip people up based on the source quiz points.
Good idea. Solidify the main structural rules.
Okay, first one. If you're talking about a specific day of the week, like Monday, which preposition do you need?
It has to be on Monday. It's that specific calendar tile. Not in Monday, not at Monday.
Got it. Second, if you're talking about a traffic problem, that specific situation where cars are stuck and not moving because there are too many of them, what's the common term?
That's the traffic jam. Rush hour is the time, traffic jam is the blockage.
Perfect. And third, if you're describing the end of your workday, say at 6 p.m., how do you phrase it? I usually finish work.
At 6 p.m., you need that precise preposition at to mark the boundary point on the clock.
On Monday, traffic jam at 6 p.m. Those are the kinds of core structural choices that make the language clear and unambiguous.
They really are. Consistency in using them correctly is key to sounding fluent and being understood when talking about routines.
Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. A final provocative thought, perhaps.
Well, building on what we've discussed, here's something to consider. When you master this language of routine, the commute words, the time prepositions, the action verbs, you're actually doing more than just learning how to describe your own day.
What else are you doing?
You're gaining an incredibly powerful tool for comparison. You instantly get the ability to compare and contrast your own daily reality, your logistical life, with basically anyone else on the planet who describes their routine using the same framework.
Just based on their word choices.
Absolutely. Think about it. When someone tells you, I commute by car, versus someone else who says, I commute by train, or I start work at 8 a.m. versus at 9 a.m., those aren't just grammatical differences.
No. As we saw, they're snapshots.
Exactly. Linguistic snapshots of entire cultural systems, infrastructural realities, societal priorities about time and movement. The choice of a single noun or preposition can reveal so much about the underlying context.
So the final question for you, the listener, is this. What aspect of your daily routine, maybe it's the preposition you use for your start time at, or the day you have off on, or the period you focus best in, or maybe it's the way you commute, by what, or on foot. What single detail tells the most interesting story about where you live and how your life is structured?
It's something to ponder maybe the next time you're, well, either enjoying an efficient trip on public transport,
or, more likely for many, stuck in one of those classic, universally understood traffic jams. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.